Action. Okay, so this is a new COVID paper, and new as in published September 2023. So relatively new that I just randomly saw from an article, and I was like, oh, that's interesting because there's not a lot on viral kinetics of recent COVID variants. And this one goes up to April of 2023, so it includes recent COVID variants. So the paper right here is, titled "The New Normal: Delayed Peak Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome." So SARS, coronavirus 2, viral loads relative to onset, symptom onset and implication for coronavirus disease, testing programs. So basically just saying, the title is basically saying, hey, peak loads are occurring a little bit later than they used to. Originally, or like for the current variants, the incubation time's gotten shorter, and then the theory has been that the peak viral loads is then happening much quicker than it did before, and now this study is saying, like, okay, yes, those the incubation time has gotten shorter, but the peak viral load is actually taking longer to get to that. So here, let me pull up a graph just to ground you in some context. Viral load. Transmission, kinetics. That should give me the image I want. It's always buried like halfway down. Okay, let's look at this one. This one usually can link to it. Otherwise, I'll just use this one. I'll just use this one. I have certain figures I like to go to point to. Here we go. So originally we had a slow viral curve where it would take a couple days to peak, and then, but right when those symptoms were appearing, your peak symptoms would be, your peak viral load would be happening right around the start of those symptoms. Now this paper is saying that the symptoms are starting, but at a lower viral load, and that you're actually peaking more into the side where you're already having symptoms for several days. So let's go back to the paper. I just wanted to ground us in some reality. Okay. So starting in the abstract, early in the coronavirus disease pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, peak viral loads coincided with symptom onset, so that's what I just showed you. So that's our history. We hypothesized that a highly immune population, symptom onset might occur earlier in infection, coinciding with lower viral loads. So that's interesting. Their hypothesis was that because at least at the beginning, around 80% of our population was immunized at least once, and then around 75 had 2 vaccines, and then it's gotten lower since then in terms of bivalent and stuff like that. So their hypothesis is that because of this and previous infections, maybe COVID's getting to a point where it's not so bad over time. So that was their hypothesis. For their methods, They looked at both COVID and influenza A, but we're going to ignore influenza A because we're only focused on COVID, or at least I'm only interested on COVID. And they're looking at viral loads relative to symptom duration in symptomatic adults greater than 16 years of age. So young adults and adults is what they're looking at, specifically in Georgia from April of 2022 to April of 2023. And that's why I'm interested in this paper, is because it goes to this year, which is, we don't have a lot of data on the most recent variants. So this is our next look into our viral kinetics evolution of COVID. So they're using nasal swabs, using some sort of triple assay that tests for COVID, flu, and RSV. Oh cool, it gives you cycle threshold values, so that's good. That's basically a severity index for how severe the COVID is. And then they're also doing, they're getting nucleoprotein concentrations of the COVID as well as PCR samples. So this is a pretty in-depth study. So a good thing that this will also do is give like a relative sense of when the current rapid tests are going to be sensitive at picking up COVID, because it's going to change over time. The further along you get, when the viral load is continuing to increase, when those when that viral load peaks, and a little bit before and a little bit after is when you're going to be the most likely to pick it up on a rapid test. So this is going to give us information on those rapid tests, so that's an additional bonus. And they tested 348, let me bring the microphone closer, I feel like it's probably better. Is it plugged in? Yeah, it's plugged in. So of the 348, so 348 patients were included in the study. Where'd my highlight go? This is 348 newly diagnosed COVID patients. They are PCR positive individuals. 65.5% were women, so this is a little bit on the younger side. Similar concentrations of women. That's weird, my partner's calling me. 1 second, I'm gonna have to pause. Let's see. My partner got a snow globe. Apparently that was the package that came that I had to grab at the beginning of the live. Okay, so this study's got about the same proportion of women that we typically see. It's a little younger of a population, around 40. Typically we see around 45, 50, so that's interesting. 91% had a history of vaccination. I don't know what they mean by that. Oh, so they're including this vaccination, natural infection, or both. So the other way to look at that is that the 8.9% did not have vaccination nor infection, is the other way to look at that. So, we already knew that. So it looks like from the day of symptom onset, the viral load continued to rise from the day of symptom onset and peaked around the 4th or 5th day. So that's different than what it has in the past, where right at the start of symptoms, people were getting So that's very interesting. So right at the start of symptoms, like it's mentioned up here, people were getting the peak viral load. Now you're having symptoms for a couple days, and then you're having the peak viral load, which implies that for people taking rapid tests, right, when you're sick, and a couple days after, even like 3 days after, it might not detect. You might not have a high enough viral load to detect on certain rapid tests. So this is saying that even if you're symptomatic and you're not testing positive, you could still have COVID because the viral load is peaking much later than it used to, where it's peaking around the 4th or 5th day. So definitely continue your serial testing of rapid tests longer, because it seems like around day 4 or 5 is when you would be most likely to get a positive rapid test. So the rapid test sensitivity estimates was 30 to 60 on the first day, so very low. That's basically what I just said. So it's very low on the first day. On the third day, they're picking up 80 to 93%. Oh, sorry, that's on the fourth day. On the fourth day, they're picking up 80 to 93%. So even on day 3, they're missing anywhere from about 40 to 20 to 40% of people that are actually positive with COVID, so that's interesting. But that just reinforces what I just said. I wouldn't necessarily say that the highly immune adult population is causing this. It's possible that it's contributing to it. I don't agree with this. I think part of it is due to the mutations in current variants that it might be more favorable for them to just be peaking later on in the infection than earlier. So I think, yeah, this might have a factor to play, being immune, having different types of immunity and different levels of immunity in the population, but I think it's more the virus and its viral kinetics itself. I don't necessarily agree with their conclusion there. Alright, let's get into the meat of this paper. That's weird, they don't usually have a graphic like that right at the beginning. Anyways, no questions, we're good. So, so they're giving us a little history. They're just repeating that on the first commercially available rapid tests, antigen rapid tests, they're using AGRDTs for some reason. Most people use RT for rapid tests. That's an annoying abbreviation because AG typically means silver. So they're just saying that viral loads in symptomatic adults within the first 7 days of symptoms were were reliably high enough to be detected in most individuals by rapid tests with strongest performance. And then the original instructions, so that's an interesting thing that I'm going to highlight. So the initial instructions from the FDA for rapid tests was to only use a single test in symptomatic individuals within the first week of symptoms. That's how they were going to diagnose it, that basically one and done, you're good. It would give you a positive or a negative, and then you would just go with that. Now we've moved on to serial testing, and this is why, because this study is implying, while we haven't gotten to the meat of it yet, is implying that, that was interesting, the colors went away, but it's implying that the viral loads are peaking on day 4 or 5, which is much later than, and that's 4 or 5 into symptoms, so that would be an additional, however, typically the incubation time is about 1.5 days, So if we're doing 4.5 days after symptoms develop, with an additional 1.5 days incubation time, that's about 6 days. So that's right at the tail end of this. And most people test like right when they're sick that do test. So more recently, there's noting that the negative predictive values of rapid antigen tests in newly symptomatic individuals, there's more uncertainty in that, so and that's true. What we've been seeing is that a lot of the rapid tests on average are about a coin flip in sensitivity. So you'll get a lot of false negatives, even if you're positive. This can be due to time in testing, how you collected the test, and really just the fact that we haven't updated tests, rapid antigen tests, since the very beginning of the pandemic. The best one right now is FlowFlex. That's the one that's held up the best, and it's around 80% sensitivity. So it's not as great as it could be. We used to have 90 to 95% sensitivity, but that's degraded over the years. And that's what happens when your virus continues to mutate and you don't update the tests. That's neat. So Delta viral loads were very, very high, and this is just basically saying that Omicron viral loads are slightly lower on average than Delta viral loads, but that they're also very high. And then this is echoing what I said earlier, is that there's an improvement in test sensitivity with serial testing, because as the viral load increases, you're more likely to overlap with you testing with the viral load being high enough, so then you get a positive, and then it tells you positive, and you're positive, so that means, yay, we did it. So in November 2022, the FDA adjusted recommendations for rapid tests to include guidance to do repeated testing 48 hours after an initial negative test this is updated guidance, and this is actually current guidance on when you are truly non-infectious. That's what we're calling non-infectious currently, is after if you test 2 separate times negative on a rapid antigen test within 48 hours, and you're negative on both of those, then we're calling you non-infectious. Are you truly non-infectious? We don't really know yet. You potentially still could be infectious, but that's what our rule of thumb is currently. It's just the end of infection is always a gray zone where we don't truly know if a person can still infect others or not. But after a long enough period, people shouldn't be infectious in our current understanding of COVID. Yep, and this has not been studied. It's not been a major focus of investigation. The viral kinetics, people have become not interested in this for whatever reason. I'm very interested in knowing how the virus is mutating and how that's changing and how we need to adjust for it. So with this paper saying that it's peaking later, that means we need to be testing longer for periods of time to know if you actually have COVID, because it's peaking on day 5, day 4. And people are going to think they're negative and just going to be spreading it even more. And then They're just saying that this is something we need to study. Obviously, yes it is. And then, so the direct dates is from April 1st, 2022, April Fools, this is not a joke, to April 13th, 2023. Gonna do a quick save real quick, just because if I don't save it, I will lose it. Yes, I want to replace it. Okay, we're good. Now I can just Control S. So that's the time period that they were testing for. They identified eligible participants at each study site. Inclusion criteria is any patient, any person seeking testing for upper respiratory infection. They excluded people that couldn't tolerate a nasal swab or were unable to provide informed consent. So the second one I agree with. I don't really get the unable to tolerate a nasal swab. So they're using clinical electronic case report forms, and that's how they're getting the date of symptom onset and any COVID testing prior. That's weird. And specifically, any positive testing within 14 days or negative testing within 2 days. Data on test method or testing date were not collected. Emory International Institutional Review Board. That's good. So right at the beginning of the study, they did PCR test within 24 hours of the enrollment of the person, and did nasal swabbing. Specifically using this Cepheid Gene Expert Express. Which is a triple assay test, so it's testing for COVID, flu, and RSV at the same time. And okay, so that's what that meant from above. So they were excluding people where they're missing data for the date of symptom onset, vaccine status, or prior infection status. And they're also eliminating people that have both COVID and the flu at the same time. Okay, that makes more sense. That was just a weird... Why didn't they put that up there? Okay. Cool, Control save. Hi, Dr. Douglas. Doing a live on my computer using the Live Center. Individual. Alright, now we're getting into the results. So again, 348 participants. Nice, thank you for making this information available. No problem. This is a really interesting one. So we don't know a lot about the viral kinetics of recent variants. So like, this is a general symptom window. Ignore the dates down here, or the time scale down here, because it's just for the original COVID variants and original Omicron, way back many centuries ago. So essentially this is like our infection period, and then the viral load is increasing, and then typically in older variants of COVID, we would have symptom onset right when the viral load was starting to peak. Now it's saying that the viral load is, hide that. Now it's saying, now it's saying that the viral load is peaking later, so symptoms are happening, and then, so it would be like this would be shifted this way, and then our viral load would be peaking up here. So you're still increasing viral load, and you're in symptoms, but then the peak of the viral load is over here, which has implications for rapid antigen testing. So the viral load's peaking between days 4 and 5, so even if you're symptomatic and you test negative on a rapid antigen test, it's very likely that it's because you tested too early, your viral load wasn't high enough, even though you're symptomatic, which is a change in how it was working earlier on. So, moving on. And then, this is a weird stat, but they're basically saying 317 people had either a vaccination, had been naturally infected, or both. Which is weird, because it's saying that, so like the, 348 minus 317, I'll just call it 20 and 50, so about 30 people had no vaccination and no history of infection in this little study enrollment. And then of these 348 participants, the symptoms with the highest prevalence were cough, sore throat, runny nose. So those would be the symptoms you would be most likely to associate with COVID right now, because the study goes up to April of 2023, so this year. So these seem to be the most common symptoms for COVID, the most likely common symptoms of current variants is what I should say. And then, so median CT values, these, I always forget what it means. Let me scroll back to the top. It's a weird phrase. CT, cycle threshold. So the cycle threshold values are weird because they're like opposite of what you would expect. The lower they go, the more severe it is. The higher they go, the less severe it is. I'll have to dig in at some point to know fully in depth what that is doing, how it's being calculated, but for now, this is all I need to know. But they consistently hit peak viral load on the 4th, 5th day of symptoms, and then trended up. So like trending up means getting less bad, like I said. So you're hitting your peak viral loads, it's going the lowest around day 4 or 5, and then it's going back up in the following days. Cool. So this is what I was telling you. So on the left here we have those CT values, which is the severity. This is based off the PCR numbers. So it's going lower and lower and lower, and then it's peaking at day 4 or 5. Looks like it's peaking day 3 here, but I guess they're calling it day 4 or 5 for when it's starting to decrease, so I guess that's how they're defining peaking. So I guess I have to take in all the information. I was only looking at one piece. So on the right we have our antigen concentration. So this is I believe the concentration of the N gene that they're testing. Yeah, I think this is the N gene on the right. So the antigen concentration is peaking day 4, dropping day 5. So yeah, I guess that's why they're saying 4 to 5 days. Somewhere in that region is the peak, then it drops off, and then we're having the 4 to 5 here as well. Okay, that makes sense. I agree with what they said. Save that. Now they're just repeating the rapid antigen findings, where on the 4th day they're picking up between 80 and 93% of cases on the rapid antigen tests. So the other way to look at that is that they're missing 20, I guess somewhere like 7 to 20% of cases are being missed. Still on day 4. Oh, neat. So the FDA, so as we mentioned earlier, the FDA recommendation to repeat testing 48 hours after initial negative test, that's interesting, was only what? Oh, okay. That makes sense. That was just okay, my brain calibrated. So, what this is saying is that, so for people that had a negative test on day 1 and had a negative test on day 2, even though they're COVID positive, by day 3, 59 to 75% of people are testing positive. So this is saying that the FDA's current recommendation is inadequate for initial. That's very, very important. For the start of tests. Oh, that's very important. Okay, so I'm going to say it again. So people are developing symptoms. They have COVID. On day 1 and day 2, they're yeah. So on day 1 and day 2, people are testing negative, where the sensitivity of it picking up was 60 to 75%, which means that 25 to 40% of people are being missed by day 3, which would be, that's not the right way to say that. Do they have a day 2? I feel like that'll give a better... Do we have a percentage chart? Otherwise, I'll just explain it. No, we don't have a percentage chart. That would have been a nice thing for them to include. So symptoms develop, and that's your day 1 of symptoms. You test negative on that day. Then you do what the FDA recommends. You take another test at 48 hours. So you're 2 days into symptoms. You test negative again. And there's a significant number of people that are not testing positive yet on current variants. So by day 3, unfortunately it doesn't look like they have a day 2 reported here, but on day 3, 60 to 75% of people were testing positive. By day 4, 80 to 93% of people were testing positive. So if we sort of extrapolate to day 2, is there a day 1 that we have? So I can get a better guesstimate. There has to be a day 1. Let me scroll up to the top. Yeah, so it was 30 to 60%. It was picking up on the first day, and then 59.2 to 60 to 75% on day 3. So if we do just like a little linear extrapolation, about 40 to 70. We'll just say 40 to 60%. 40 to 60% of people were being picked up, which means that 60% to 40%. Yeah, it's just the opposite. So so that means 40 to 60% of people were being missed that were actually positive. So that's saying that the FDA statement needs to be revised, and it sounds like that you need to do repeat testing for 4 days. So I guess the best way to do it would be day 1, day 4. So you can still just do 2 tests. Day 1, day 5. Honestly, it's probably going to have to be 3 tests. So day 1, day 3, day 5 would have to be like the FDA's new recommendation off of this finding right here. Which stinks, because that means that it's going to be more tests out of pocket for people on a single infection. That's weird. So, number of days in symptom onset. So day 0, you have this huge spread where it's like 30 to 35. Oh, this is CT values. So, it's going low. So it's getting worse. It's getting better. Oh, this is influenza. We don't care about influenza. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to call this a black because I don't want to see it. So this is just a repeat. We already highlighted it, but it's saying that early in the pandemic, viral loads were highest at the time of symptom onset and then declined steadily thereafter. Now, I guess I'll highlight a little bit. So Early in the pandemic, we want this yellow. Multiple studies show that viral loads are highest at the time of symptom onset and then decline steadily thereafter, with an overall sensitivity between 90 and 95%. Now viral loads are peaking around day 4. Day 4 of symptoms. And still taking like 1 to 3 days to incubate. So that would put you at day 5, day 7 from exposure. Where you're getting a lower end overlap of that positivity. It's still less, but you're getting enough of an overlap that it's comparable by day 4, as opposed to by like day 1. Now I'm quickly reading through, they're comparing their results to other studies, but there's very scant literature out there. I've only been able to find 9. Yeah, this view is real nice. I'm hoping that this is my second live like this, so I should be able to keep this for like 6 months, so that I won't have to like go on lives randomly like this. But it should be real nice, because you can see the stuff really well. I think it's fun that I can put a little view of myself. It has zooming capabilities. Is it? Oh, just the zoom of the paper? Yeah. The fact that like it can like zoom in a lot, so it's really easy to read. I played with the settings last live with people that were on. So right now we're just going through a new... Oh, and you can zoom more on your screen. Perfect. That's even better. Right now we're going through, this is the most recent paper on COVID viral kinetics that's most relevant to current variants, and it looks like symptoms are peaking later. The viral load is peaking later after symptoms, so like you have symptoms day 1, and by day 4, day 5 is when your viral load's peaking. So if you do like rapid antigen testing on day 1 and day 2, like the FDA recommends, and you get 2 negatives, then you're like, oh, I don't have COVID, and it's wrong, because now symptoms are peaking later. Viral load is peaking later, so it's detectable by rapid antigen tests later on, where the tests are going to be missing tons of people based off of the current recommendations of 2 negative tests within 48 hours, because like the people are going to be like, oh, must not have COVID, but they do have COVID, they just, the test is not picking it up until later now, and that's scary. Yikes-a-roni indeed. Yikes-a-roni. So now we're just getting through to the fun stuff in the discussion to see if they have anything interesting to say or any other interesting studies to reference. And this is a weird paper. They use AGRDT for antigen rapid something test instead of RT for rapid test. but it might be because it's a 3-in-1 test, so it might be specific to that test. But I don't know. It's a weird acronym. I don't like it. Yeah, so this is like one of the big takeaways is that so like, I'll have to highlight this and, whoa, didn't know I could do that. That's interesting. How did I do that? What does this do? Oh, okay. We won't do that. But that's neat. I didn't know I could strike through words. So FDA recommendation of 2 negatives 48 hours apart is not good. Our data combined with others say that you might not reliably test positive until the 3rd, 4th, or even 5th day of symptoms. That's one of the big findings of this, which means a lot of people are going to be testing, are going to be like, oh, I'm negative, not negative, but you're not negative. Fun times on the live. Yes, fun times on the live. And I gotta keep this. I like this, so I might have to do one more that's at least 20 minutes long. I don't know if it counted my first one. So yeah, so the testing negative booze, let's say we are culture positive at the moment, and someone test positive, we got better data indicate that our load would be expected to be rising and not falling in the window after that early false negative. Additionally, we note that samples containing the Omicron variant have been observed to be culture positive, such as the reason. Research. So yeah, and that's the other big part is that, like, I mean, I've been sort of dancing around this statement, and they say it so eloquently. Their data suggests that the reassurance provided by negative antigen tests may be even less now than earlier in the pandemic. That's a really nice way to say it. But essentially, it's what I've been saying. Highlight and strikeouts, zoom views, oh my, seriously, it's crazy. I can do underlines, which I didn't know. I can do strikeouts. It looks like I might be able to blur, do a text blur, but that makes this thing pops up. Oh, I have to upgrade to get that feature. I had no idea. What's that? Copy text, edit a PDF. Alright, cool. That's really nice. So I'm actually gonna try it on an image and see if that works real quick before we finish this up, just because I'm geeking out a little bit. So if I can strike out this image, that would be cool, because I don't want this image. Maybe if because this one is talking about, nope, can't strike out the image. I was hoping to have a big red line through it. That one's talking about the flu. I'm not interested in the flu. Alright, so yeah, so quick Control S. Save the file. And then individuals who test negative. Yeah, so like, and then they say this, again, very clear, concise language, I love it. People who remain symptomatic need to clearly understand that COVID has not been excluded. You need to keep testing. That the FDA guidance is outdated. The current FDA guidance is outdated based off of new variants. And I gotta think, someone messaged me the other day, they're like, I've been exposed, what do I do? And I was like, I sent them the article that, like, I had seen this before, and I was like, oh, this is a really good article, I actually need to, like, do a read-through and paper on it, or a video on the paper. And then, yep, this is the big one. I've got to put this in like a light blue or something. Brand new color scheme. Because they're explicitly saying that the FDA guidance needs to be updated to clarifying the timing of repeated testing, because that's no longer accurate according to this study, and the study was done very well, so I believe the results. So the reason you haven't seen anything on it is because people are not interested in that anymore. The funding dried up for that in 2022, which is why I'm very excited about this paper, because I haven't seen anything since 2022, early 2022. I had been digging around, and this one just kind of fell in my lap. And yeah, right? And it's super important for this exact reason, is that the negative, like, part of what's going to contribute to our current wave being as bad as I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be much worse than people are predicting right now, and already we're seeing some of the people that are predicting are going, oh my god, it's going up so much faster than our models are predicting right now. It's like 46% more than they currently predict. Yeah, no problem. I appreciate being able to bring it. I'll do a little story time after, but so, like, I think this is going to be one of the major reasons is that I've been suspecting that the viral load has been shifting to later, higher later from what people have been telling me. This is the first paper I've seen that, like, clearly shows that finding, and it's basically saying, like, hey, FDA guidance is not accurate any longer. New variants are peaking later, so people are going to test and think they're negative and don't have COVID, and they have cold or the flu or something, which lines up exactly with what people are saying. I don't have COVID, I just I got the flu, and then they probably have COVID because they didn't test at the appropriate time interval. And yeah, definitely a super interesting paper. So I'm appreciative of actually going through it now. And that's why I switched away from the vaccination one, but I do want to get back to that one eventually. Anywho, so I have to remember in my brain story time. Masking when feasible, thank you, love it, love to see it. I mean, that's sort of weak language right there, so I'm going to unhighlight that. Masking when feasible, masking always. I slept in a mask for a little bit because of my partner, a different scare. Anyways, it doesn't matter, but she didn't have COVID. We did lots and lots of testing. Oh, that's fun. So the test to treat. Ooh, our findings have. So this is the thing I literally just posted about yesterday, so that's fortuitous. Our findings also have implications for test to treat programs that combine home, this 3 flu, COVID, RSV tests, in use with prescription of antivirals, given that treatment is optimally given as early in the course of infection as possible. So I guess there might be getting at, okay, so it's peaking later on, so you might want to slightly delay the prescription of antivirals, because if you take the antivirals on day 1 of symptoms, and the viral load is continuing to increase and peak until day 5, so you're going to be suppressing the viral load when it would have been lower, and then by the time the Paxlovid is done after day 5, that's when the virus is peaking, so you're going to have a super high COVID rebound, not a rebound, it's literally just not a long enough course of the prescription, not a long enough course of the prescription, so it's has major implications for that as well. I'm glad they brought that up. I would have not thought about that. Is that people are likely going to want to delay their Paxlovid prescription for current variants, maybe start it on day 3, and then that should keep it within that peak viral load as best as possible for what we're given right now. it's clearly not enough. It hasn't been enough the entire time for the days of Paxlovid dosing, but yeah, it's another interesting point. Let's continue finishing this up for what they're saying. Test development and testing. I like these authors, they're very clever. So it looks like that is the thing that things have been shifting towards. Shared. Thank you for sharing. They're moving towards multiplex tests. So I guess that's why they used that in this study. That's not super interesting. We'll just put it to green. But yeah, that was so interesting. I had to do a new color code in my system. Is green is usually like my really good information. Blue is my holy crap information now. So it looks like we're moving on to multiplex tests, so that could be good if they're updating the tests to current variants. I do not know. They might just be smashing in the test type that they already developed with the RSV and influenza testing, which still wouldn't be great. I don't know. I would need to see. I'm hoping that they update the tests to current variants. And so basically all they have to do is infect mice with current variant strains, get the antibodies from that, use that for their plating, for the detecting, and their sensors. That's the big hand-wavy thing. I could really dive in depth. I took a biosensors course and I learned a lot. I actually developed one for COVID before it became a huge pandemic. And I thought that was fun. And I was actually right about all the stuff I did. Pretty much exactly how they do it now, except mine would have been reusable, because I was going to use gold nanoparticles. And then this is something that we have to do, is communicate. I'm going to highlight this blue. So like this is a very big important finding. We need to communicate this with people. People need to know this because it's going to impact when you should be taking your Paxlovid. It's going to impact when you should be testing. Yeah, it has major implications. Yep, that's a very big important statement, is that our data remind us that viral kinetics relative to duration of symptoms can change over time, and that the data collected early in pandemic should not be assumed to still apply in the months to years that follow. So we need to continually capture the viral kinetics, the dynamics of disease as they evolve over time. That is something we really need to do. And yeah, that's what I've been personally screaming about. I don't think I've just been screaming about it on TikTok, but that's just something I yell about all the time to people that I talk to about this stuff. Cool. And then I wanted to do a story time, but, you know, I forgot what the story time was. Oh yeah, first let's do a quick overview of the whole paper, and then we'll try to figure out what story time was. If anyone can remind me of the topic we were talking about when I was like, oh, I should tell you a story time. Okay, so, that's the ADHD. Okay, so this paper was looking at disease progression of more current variants. It was looking from April of 2022 to April of 2023, so this is the closest to current variants that we have right now in terms of knowing what's happening with the viral dynamics. And when I talk about viral dynamics, it's essentially this right here, where you have a pre-infection, you have like the exposure, the incubation time, which is the buildup of the viral load, and then you have the symptom onset, and then the viral load decreases. That's the general course of disease. And they're saying that instead of it peaking at the same time as symptoms start, it's peaking later into symptoms. So maybe it's starting to peak right over here at the end of this window. So they hypothesize this is due to people having prior immunity either to vaccination or to prior infection, which, you know, is neither here nor there. I think that there's some merit to that hypothesis, but I also think that they're not factoring in the fact that it's going to deplete your immune system, your immune responsibility with a little dash in between. And yeah, forgot to, yeah. It's okay. It'll probably pop up to me after I get through the repeat. So that was their theory, and they went through, they tested it, they looked at about 400 patients in Georgia, and they said, alright, we're going to find people that are right at the start of their infection, they know the exact time that they had they're not looking at exposure, but their first time symptoms occurred, and we have the case history for this, so we're going to test you right when you were exposed and you came to the hospital, or into this clinic, to get the initial PCR values and the initial rapid testing to see if you become positive, and they're also testing against flu and RSV, so that's good that it's a triplet assay because it's seeing if they have one or the other, and then also it's excluding anything that's flu, anything that's RSV, and then the one thing they are doing, which I don't necessarily agree with, is they're getting rid of flu and COVID patients. Apparently there's a lot of overlap for that, so they got just X'd out those people. But I'd be really interested, since a lot of people are doing that, what that comparison would have been. That would have been a nice addition to the paper. But again, when you're writing a paper, you just focus on the meat, and that would have been like a side portion. That would have been a appetizer, or not an appetizer, dessert. You don't need dessert in a paper. Anyhow, so that's what they did. They went through and tested it. The thing that they found is that on day 1, the rapid tests are only picking up 30 to 60% of cases. By day 3, they're picking up 60 to 75%. By day 4, they're picking up 80 to 93%, which is similar sensitivity to what the current, or like the original ones were doing. The original ones were actually 90 to 95% sensitive, so they're better, but like at least there's a little bit of overlap between your two bars, like that. So those were like the essential major findings, but this has huge implications so like these were the CT values. You're getting sicker, it's going down, and then it's plateauing between days 3 and 4, and then you're starting to go back down by day 5. So that's why they're calling it day 4 and 5, because you're starting to do that decrease right in that window. And the antigen or the number of N gene copies is increasing up to day 4, and then dropping day 5. So that's their additional evidence for that. And then this has major implications for rapid testing because of the 48-hour rule. So people are going to have their initial symptoms, they're going to test again, and then there's going to be 40 to 60% of people that have COVID but got 2 negative tests, and therefore think, I'm clean, I don't have COVID, when they actually do have COVID. And then that also has implications for Paxlovid and antiviral treatment, because if you start your treatment on day 1, as is recommended currently, you're going to be wasting your Paxlovid dose, because by day 4 and 5, the end of your Paxlovid dose, is when the viral loads are going to be peaking, so you're going to be missing that peak viral window, so you're going to definitely get the rebound, where you're going to have a reemergence of symptoms. It's going to feel a lot worse because you're taking it too early for the new variants. It's essentially that. And then they're reminding us, we need to keep studying this, we need to keep studying viral kinetics, because they change over time, because viruses mutate, and we know it's mutating, and we know it's mutating a lot, and that's going to change how it presents and how it interacts with our body. And the fact that it's literally, like, it was going from bats to people, and now it's been in people for a really long time, so, like, it's going to be adapting and changing and mutating in correspondence with our immune system, so, yeah. So we learned a lot from this paper. It's a very, very good paper. Save it. Okay, so let's see if I can remember. So I'm going to tell a story. Let's see, we're talking about masks. No. Darn. All I remember is going to be a good story. Isn't mutated enough to be SARS-CoV-3? Well, I don't know. I don't think, like, no matter how mutated it gets, it's still going to be SARS-CoV-2. I'm trying to think of a scenario where it would be like SARS-CoV-3. I think that it would have to be a new emerging lineage from another bat population. I've heard of some fruit bats in New Zealand that have novel coronavirus strains from them. So that could potentially be a SARS-CoV-3. If that jumped from those bats, that new novel strain of coronavirus jumped from those different population of bats to humans, that could be a SARS-CoV-3. But the SARS-CoV-2, like, no matter how much it mutates in us and how much it continues to evolve, it's still going to be SARS-CoV-2 because it's originating from this local bat population in the Wuhan province. So that's SARS-CoV-2, and then like SARS-CoV-1 or SARS-CoV, I forget where it originated, but so I think it more has to do with like distinct zoonotic jumps. So it would have to be a new version of it jumping from animals to humans, and it would have to be located, like be able to be tracked that way. It would have to be distinct enough that it wasn't just something where it went from like us to the bats. Like if in this scenario we infected the bats, hey, if in this scenario we infected the bats and it mutated in the bats and it came back to us, that might not be enough to consider it a SARS-CoV-3, depending on the mutations. Like if it was just like, oh, it slightly changed the spike protein again, well, that could be a mutation that you could just get normally from being in humans. But if like all of a sudden it had a new protein on it, like an, I don't know, an S, no, we'll call it a P protein or something like that. If it changed from an S to a P, then it could be SARS-CoV-3. Or if instead of the S protein being the major binding one, it could be the N protein. Like if that suddenly became the main target antigen, that could be a SARS-CoV-3. So SARS-CoV-2 is just its own runaway thing now. Correct. SARS-CoV-2 is just its own runaway thing now, and if it had like a million variants, like we're well on our way to thousands, but it, like, all of those fall under the umbrella of SARS-CoV-2, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately, because You don't want lots of zoonotic spillovers. That would be bad. Cool. Well, I can't remember the thing that I wanted to tell you, but we went through the paper. We learned a lot. It's kind of scary. It's good having knowledge. Sometimes it's frustrating because you can instantly see how it's going to impact things. Like, let me jump back to wastewater scan. I was looking at it this morning and it just jumped again. Oh, I can do a quick synopsis of it. It's pretty sure, and I'm recording this, so I'm gonna post it on YouTube after. Might be angry at me. Oh yeah, I already follow you. Yay, thank you. Here we go. Oh no! We'll have to wait a few more minutes. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, I figured that like having these papers like live walkthrough is going to be good for people just to like learn how to read science papers, and like it's okay to look things up. People don't think it's okay to just look things up. Oh, that's weird. It disappeared. There it is. It was just taking a second. So this little guy, our first little jump, Mammoth, California. Yeah, there's a big old lag. It doesn't like me having this much bandwidth being sucked up. But yeah, it's starting to go exponential. I said that before, but now it's really looking like it. I'm going to do a little snip so I can go over the graph and then kind of cross out some of this processing power. Come on, do my shortcut. Maybe it's different on my computer. At work I always do Shift, Windows, S, and that allows me to jump to the, apparently on my personal computer that's speech recognition. Let's try Control, Windows S. There we go. Now this should allow me to just snip it. It's taking too long. I'm just going to close it. We're glitching. We're glitching. We're glitching. I did too much. My computer's angry. That's the annoying thing, is that sometimes I have more curiosity than my computer can handle. I have no idea if it's even still streaming. Come on. Close. There we go. Alright. You see me here? Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I thought it all went away. It got angry. It got real angry at me. But yeah, so I wasn't able to go over it, but it's starting to really spike, and that's not good. But yeah, so just a quick high-level overview of the paper that we went through. Then I'll have to log off because I want to go exercise. But they're looking at viral load, and the viral load is popping up further into the infection, further after symptoms than it originally did. So originally, with the like original Omicron XBB, Delta back in that time, back in like 2020, 2021, our viral load peaked at the same time that symptoms started, and now viral load is peaking about 4 to 5 days after symptoms start. So, and they did really good testing on this, but like, here we go. So like for the rapid test, so on day 1 it's only picking up 30 to 60%. On day 3 it's picking up between 60 and 75, and on day 4 it's picking up between 80 and 93%. Yeah. So the implication is that based off of the current FDA recommendation of testing negative 2 times for 48 hours, like the end of the window, that's fine. But at the beginning of the window, so people test on day 1 of symptoms, they get their negative. They test on day 2 of symptoms, they're still negative. And that's going to happen, according to this, between like 40 to 60% of people are still going to be testing negative by that second day. So that means those people are going to be like, oh, I don't have COVID, and they did exactly what they think they were supposed to do, which is do that testing 48 hours apart. And they got 2 negatives, and they're like, nope, don't have COVID, must be the flu, must be something else, I'm fine. And it actually is COVID, because if they tested on day 4 or 5, they would be having like about a 80 to 93% sensitivity where it would pick it up. So it's going to give people a lot of false security, like, oh, I don't have COVID, number 1. Number 2, it has implications for Paxlovid. So if you're taking your Paxlovid as recommended currently, which is on day 1 of symptoms, right when symptoms happen, as close as possible, then you take your 5 days, and when the viral load is peaking by day 4 or 5, then you're not having much overlap with it, so you're going to have that big rebound, quote-unquote, where you're going to have a big emergence of symptoms. It's going to feel really shitty at the end of your Paxlovid, and that's because the Paxlovid should be probably taken on day like 3 or 4 now, and then have your 5 days of that. But ultimately, the Paxlovid dose just needs to be extended. I know they have studies working on that right now to try to extend it to a 10-day dose, but that's like the big implication for the Paxlovid as well. And then that's what's happening now. So many people I just got sick are saying I just got sick and tested negative, but then way later, oh, I just got COVID too. Well, I didn't think about the impact of how... Yes, I didn't think about that either. They actually brought that up in the paper at the bottom, and I was like, wow, I'm glad they brought that up. I actually created a new color coding system with light blue for things that are like, oh my god. But yeah, they're saying, like, so like the big thing was like with the testing, and then the Paxlovid, the antiviral treatments. Like, I'm ad-libbing a little bit because they didn't fully explain it, but like that's the implication, is that it's not going to be overlapping appropriately with their antiviral treatment with the symptom duration, because the viral load is peaking later, so you're going to have those major symptoms and the major like contagion that you're spreading to other people later. I mean, you're still going to be contagious the whole time probably until the end. But yeah, just showing that things are getting worse, and the paper is reminding us that, hey, the virus is changing, the virus is evolving, we need to like continue to monitor it this way, even though people stopped monitoring it really in 2022, this is something that's still important. Hey guys, type of thing. And that's sort of the quick overview of the paper. Cool. Well, I am going to log off, and then I'll probably upload this video later tonight. So thanks for swinging by, everybody. So I sense why people are going on now and people testing too soon. Yeah. And no problem. Bye.